Gloria Grahame's life embodied the highs of Hollywood glamour and the lows of scandal and heartbreak. In 1953, the petite blonde with the sultry voice stood on the Academy Awards stage to collect an Oscar, her star ascending amid the bright lights of Tinseltown. Yet within a decade, Grahame would be blacklisted by gossip and scandal, most notoriously a shocking affair with her own teenage stepson that rattled Hollywood's genteel facade. The same actress who beguiled audiences as a film noir femme fatale became an outcast, her tumultuous personal life eclipsing a brilliant, if brief, career. How did a woman who once stole scenes with a single glance fall so far from grace? Welcome to Hollywood Mysteries. Gloria Grahame was born Gloria Penelope Hallward on November 28, 1923, in Los Angeles, California. She was the younger of two daughters in an intellectually and artistically inclined family. Her father, Reginald Michael Hallward, was an English-born architect and author, and her mother, Jean McDougall, stage name Jean Grahame, was a Scottish actress who became a respected drama coach. It was little wonder, then, that young Gloria was raised in the theater. She literally grew up in the wings. During her childhood and teens, her mother taught acting classes and groomed Gloria in the craft, and Jean Grahame's tutelage gave her daughter an early taste of the spotlight. Educated in Los Angeles at Hollywood High School, Grahame reportedly dropped out before graduating to pursue an acting career. She adopted her mother's first name as her own professional surname, becoming Gloria Grahame in homage to the woman who trained her. By age 18, she was already finding work on stage. One early review praised the young actress as a flamboyant and amusing floozy, hinting at the kind of brassy, seductive characters she would later excel at playing. In April 1942, Gloria landed a part in the long-running stage farce Good Night, Ladies in Chicago, holding her own alongside some veteran performers. She made her Broadway debut the following year in December 1943, as a chorus girl in the comedy The World's Full of Girls. Those appearances put her on the radar of Hollywood talent scouts, and soon fate, in the form of a legendary studio mogul, came calling. According to Hollywood lore, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer chief Louis B. Mayer caught one of Gloria's Broadway performances and was impressed by the starlet. It's uncertain whether it was The World's Full of Girls or a short-lived 1944 play called Highland Fling. In 1944, MGM signed the 19-year-old Gloria to a studio contract, and this brought her into the golden age of the Hollywood studio system. So it was that under the MGM banner, she made her film debut in Blonde Fever, a light romantic comedy where she played a gold-digging waitress. It was a modest part in a B-movie, but it already gave a taste of her on-screen electricity. However, MGM struggled to categorize Gloria's unique style. With her wide-set doe eyes and provocative pout, she wasn't a typical ingenue, nor was she a grand leading lady in the Greer Garson mold. Meanwhile, she was busy becoming the leading lady in at least one person's life, Polish-American actor Stanley Clements, whom she married in 1945. The marriage barely lasted 3 years. By June 1948, Grahame divorced Clements, later claiming that he had been abusive. Indeed, friends said she emerged from that marriage deeply shaken, but this would be nothing compared to the trauma of her second marriage. In any case, her movie career was building. After a couple of minor roles, including a flower girl bit in Without Love and a nurse in It Happened in Brooklyn, MGM loaned Grahame out for a role that would paradoxically raise her profile even as it convinced her home studio she wasn't leading lady material. That role was Violet Bick in Frank Capra's classic It's a Wonderful Life. As the town's flirtatious good-time girl, Gloria made a big impression in just a few scenes. It's hard to forget her slinking around Bedford Falls in tight satin and stealing glances with James Stewart. Though a wholesome Christmas fable at heart, the film allowed her to play a small-town vamp with just enough heart to be redeemable. The character Violet was really the embodiment of Gloria's emerging screen persona, sexy, sassy, but ultimately sympathetic. Still, MGM executives were unconvinced that Grahame could be a major star. In a decision that would hugely change the path of her career, the studio sold her contract to RKO Pictures in 1947. They were essentially trading her away to another studio that specialized in edgy noir dramas. At RKO, Gloria Grahame found the darker, more complex roles that fit her talents, and she quickly began her ascent to stardom. Her breakout role came almost immediately, in RKO's taut 1947 crime thriller, Crossfire. Gloria played Ginny Tremaine, a dance hall girl who becomes a witness in a murder investigation. Though it was a supporting part, Gloria's portrayal of the vulnerable, seen-it-all Ginny earned some rave reviews. She brought a surprisingly layered humanity to the tart with a heart archetype, and she rolled out wisecracks one moment and revealed fragility the next. Crossfire was a hit and picked up 5 Oscar nominations, including Gloria's own first Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress. A Los Angeles Times critic observed that Gloria, quote, gradually peels away the layers of the girl's mask to expose an all-pervasive bitterness that had seldom, if ever, been seen on screen before. With 1 Oscar nomination under her belt at age 24, Gloria Grahame had officially arrived in Hollywood. Speaking of arriving in Hollywood, why not bring Hollywood glamour to wherever you live? One way to do this would be to check out the recently revamped store page, which now has new shirts available, whether for yourself or as an ideal gift for any occasion. There's a link in the description, and the shirts are all exclusive designs we make ourselves. Every sale is a huge help to the channel. Thank you to all of those who have already purchased one. Throughout the late 1940s, Gloria became a frequent face in film noir, the quintessential femme fatale or troubled beauty who could be at once seductive and dangerous. In films like Roughshod and Naked Alibi, she vamped it up as gun moles and nightclub singers, all smoky voice and simmering attitude. Most of Grahame's films have lurid titles: Blonde Fever, Roughshod, The Good Die Young, and Say Her Name Out Loud. It even sounds like her, fancy and earthy at once, tart, ungraspable, said one retrospective on her career. She had a trademark way of making an entrance, accompanied by a wail of hot jazz, lipstick in hand, flipping her dirty hair and cheap hoop earrings, as she provocatively stretched out her legs. Off-screen, however, she was still the shy girl who doubted her abilities, a contrast not lost on colleagues. I felt unqualified then, but Gloria always felt unqualified, Terry Moore said of Grahame's persistent self-doubt. In 1950, Gloria took on one of the finest roles of her career. She co-starred opposite Humphrey Bogart in RKO's In a Lonely Place, directed by Nicholas Ray. As aspiring actress Laurel Gray, Grahame gave a performance of subtle depth, and she more than held her own against Bogart's volatile screenwriter character. She begins the film wry and amused in a police station scene, almost like a modern career woman unfazed by Bogart's cynicism. But as the story unfolds into a dark romance of suspicion and violence, Gloria peels back Laurel's layers, and we see her tenderness, fear, and resolve in equal measure. Furthermore, the film was notorious for her scene in which she wears only a sheet covering her naked body. This was extremely provocative at the time, and pushed the Hays Code to its limits. Many critics were outraged. But Gloria said, "I sleep in the raw because it's comfortable. Evolution has caught up with the nightgown manufacturers, and they don't want to admit it." Though In a Lonely Place wasn't a big box office success, it later became regarded as a noir masterpiece, with Gloria's performance now considered one of her most compelling. Contemporary reviews noted her enigma quality. The more Laurel learns of her lover's temper, the more enigmatic she seems, one critic wrote. Behind the scenes, however, life was imitating art in unsettling ways. Gloria was actually married to director Nicholas Ray at the time, and their relationship was already in serious trouble. They had embarked on a whirlwind affair and were married in June 1948, the day after her divorce from Clements was finalized. This relationship was tempestuous to say the least, and this was a tempest that would soon explode into a public scandal so large it redefined the notion of scandal. Ray was 12 years her senior and had directed her in the film A Woman's Secret in 1948. They connected during that production. Gloria was looking for stability, and perhaps a mentor as her relationship to the immature Clements began to falter. Ray, on the other hand, was totally captivated by his young star's mix of innocence and sex appeal. The couple welcomed a son, Timothy, in November 1948, a child conceived before their wedding and while she was still married to Clements, from whom she had been separated for almost 2 years after he beat her up. Still, outwardly it seemed a happy creative partnership. Ray, of course, offered his wife a wonderful opportunity in A Lonely Place, and she rewarded him with that stellar performance. But behind closed doors, their marriage was crumbling in spectacular fashion. In fact, on the wedding night, Ray reportedly blew $30,000, around $400,000 today, at Las Vegas casinos so she wouldn't get her hands on it. He later said, "I was infatuated by her, but I didn't like her very much." If it was dislike at first sight for Ray, that would soon turn to utter hatred. The Grahame-Ray household became ground zero for one of Hollywood's most infamous scandals. In 1951, Nicholas Ray allegedly came home one day to a nightmare scenario. He claimed he found Gloria in bed with another man, only man would be a shocking overstatement of the true facts. In fact, she was caught in flagrante delicto with Ray's own son from a prior marriage, 13-year-old Anthony Tony Ray. Tony had just returned from military school and found himself in the arms of his father's movie star wife. This explosive allegation, if true, meant Gloria had seduced, or as it would certainly be seen today, awfully abused, her underage stepson. It was the kind of thing Gloria Grahame, the actress, would have done in her movies, one critic later noted. The discovery effectively ended their marriage on the spot. He separated from Gloria and they quietly divorced in 1952. Remarkably, they managed to keep this bombshell out of the media for a decade. At the time, only Hollywood insiders traded whispers about why the charismatic director and his actress wife split so suddenly. Gloria never publicly commented on the specifics. Decades later, her last partner, Peter Turner, would claim the story of Tony being only 13 at the start of the affair was fiction, and he claimed the relationship with Tony began later. Whether the liaison started when Tony was in his early teens, or a few years later, the essential facts remain scandalous. Gloria Grahame had an affair with her stepson, who was nearly 14 years her junior, and whom she had known since he was a child. This astonishing situation would eventually become public and nearly destroy her. And if you think the shocking story ends here, there's even more to come later. Still in the eyes of Hollywood, Gloria Grahame in 1950 was a rising star at the top of her game. By 1952, Gloria's career hit its zenith, just as all this drama unfolded at home. That year alone, she appeared in 4 major films. She reprised her siren persona in the glossy noir Sudden Fear, playing scheming Irene Neves opposite Joan Crawford. And she even joined the circus, literally, in Cecil B. DeMille's blockbuster The Greatest Show on Earth, where she appeared as a spunky elephant girl, a role for which she performed her own stunts. But it was Gloria's turn in MGM's prestige drama The Bad and the Beautiful that earned her the ultimate Hollywood accolade. In this inside Hollywood tale directed by Vincent Minnelli, Grahame played Rosemary, a bubbly Southern belle who becomes collateral damage in her husband's ruthless climb up the movie industry ladder. It was a relatively small role. Rosemary appears on screen for barely over 9 minutes, yet Gloria made it memorable. She has a delightful scene flirting with Dick Powell's novelist character, and the audience gets the full blast of her charm before tragedy strikes her down. Those few minutes were enough to secure Gloria an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, her first and only Oscar win. When her name was announced at the 25th Academy Award ceremony on March 19, 1953, the 29-year-old actress seemed stunned. She walked to the podium, quote, atop quivering heels with a deer-in-the-headlights expression, and kept her acceptance speech to a terse 4 words, "Thank you very much." Then she hastily exited the stage. The brevity of her speech drew affectionate chuckles in the auditorium. The press assumed it was a cute display of modesty. In truth, Gloria was overwhelmed by nerves and fear. "I suffered from a really bad attack of Oscar fright, and I don't think I've ever recovered from it yet," she admitted in an interview that summer. Later, she joked that she hardly ever saw her Oscar statuette because her young son Timothy had claimed it as a toy. "Timmy plays with it in his room. As for what I think of my cherished Oscar, all I can say is that no fond mother takes away her child's favorite plaything." Her self-effacing humor aside, Gloria's Academy Award was the peak of her rise to fame. She had proven herself one of the screen's most compelling supporting actresses. In the afterglow of the Oscar, Gloria's Hollywood standing was sky high. She had now been nominated twice, for Crossfire and The Bad and the Beautiful, and won on her second try. The industry saw her as a valuable character actress, someone who could elevate any film with her presence. Throughout 1953 and 1954, she continued to land juicy roles that built on her growing reputation. In Fritz Lang's violent crime drama, The Big Heat, Gloria delivered perhaps her most iconic screen moment as Debbie Marsh, a gangster's mole who suffers a horrifying revenge, having scalding hot coffee thrown in her face by a sadistic mobster, played by Lee Marvin. Gloria somehow made Debbie both hardened and heartbreakingly human. After her face is disfigured off-screen, she reemerges with bandages and a quietly seething determination to get even. The Big Heat's most famous scene, and its emotional core, belong to her character. Similarly, in Lang's Human Desire, she played an adulterous wife ensnared in a deadly love triangle. This time, she was able to draw upon real off-screen tension. During filming, she had a secret affair with co-star Glenn Ford. Time and again, Gloria excelled at playing the femme fatale, a woman whose sexuality and desperation could drive men to madness. As one writer quipped, her filmography became a strumpet cornucopia, a gallery of tramps, floozies, and noir temptresses, each distinct in Grahame's interpretation. In August 1954, she entered her third marriage, wedding Cy Howard, a successful television writer-producer. With Howard, Grahame had a daughter, Mariana, born in 1956. But this marriage, too, was tumultuous. Grahame filed for divorce in 1957, citing mental cruelty. The stress of her recent past seemed to haunt her. She reportedly suffered mood swings and bouts of depression. She once pulled a gun on Howard, and in another episode cut up all of his clothes. After her Oscar win, Grahame's image had hardened into that of Hollywood's go-to bad girl. However, in 1955, she surprised people by appearing in a big-budget musical, Rodgers and Hammerstein's Oklahoma, certainly a seeming departure from dark melodrama. Cast as Ado Annie, the giggly country girl who can't say no to suitors, Grahame on paper was an intriguing choice. Yet this would prove to be a professional low point. The wholesome musical format did not play to her strengths, and critics felt she was miscast as a rustic flirt, given that moviegoers knew her best as an urban film noir siren. During production, Gloria also struggled with singing. Her vocals had to be partially dubbed, and she reportedly bickered with castmates. Gloria's niece, Vicky Mixham, later revealed that the experience deeply rattled Gloria's confidence. She was pushed and belittled by the crew because she felt so inadequate doing a musical, Mixham said. Everybody told her how horrible she was. The failure of Oklahoma for Grahame, even though the film itself was financially successful, marked the beginning of her career's downturn. By 1956, after that bruising experience, Gloria stepped back from film work to focus on her children and her troubled marriage to Cy at that time. Another factor contributing to Grahame's career slowdown was her own growing insecurity about her appearance, which led to a fateful obsession. Despite being widely considered a classic Hollywood beauty, Gloria fixated on a perceived flaw. She felt her upper lip was too thin. In an unusual attempt to enhance her sex appeal, she began stuffing cotton or tissue under her upper lip during filming to give it a fuller pout. Co-stars in love scenes would sometimes find wisps of wadded tissue mid-kiss, an odd surprise that betrayed Gloria's anxieties. Over the years, she carved herself up, trying to make herself into an image of beauty she felt should exist but didn't, recalled her niece Vicky. In the mid-50s, Grahame underwent cosmetic procedures on her lip that unfortunately caused nerve damage, leaving parts of her lip partially paralyzed. This had a noticeable effect on her speech and facial expressions on screen. In Oklahoma, for example, some critics commented that her diction seemed odd, likely a result of the lip surgery. Grahame's vanity, born of insecurity, ended up undermining one of her great assets as an actress, her natural expressiveness. It was a tragic irony that in trying to conform to Hollywood beauty standards, that she inadvertently hampered the very qualities that made her unique. If her nerves were tattered by the surgeries, then they cannot have been helped by the treatment she sought for her mental state. She went through the standard torturous procedures of 1950s mental health care, which amounted to ice-cold baths and electroshock therapy. None of this could save her marriage, and she divorced Sy in 1957. There was perhaps someone on her mind that she couldn't shake, and in a few years she would shock the world with her final marriage. By the late 1950s, Grahame's film career was losing momentum. After Oklahoma, major roles became fewer. She did have a notable part in The Cobweb, a drama about a psychiatric clinic, and she appeared in the star-studded medical melodrama Not as a Stranger. But neither restored the buzz she once enjoyed. In 1956, she played a small but poignant role in The Man Who Never Was, and in 1957 she co-starred in a western, Ride Out for Revenge. These projects came and went quietly. Meanwhile, younger actresses were coming up, and Gloria, now in her mid-30s, found herself caught in an awkward niche. Too iconic to blend into minor parts, but too scandal-tainted for major studios to get behind. One bright spot was the gritty film noir Odds Against Tomorrow from 1959, where Grahame had a supporting role as an aging mistress to Robert Ryan's character. It showed she still had the brilliance to light up a screen, and she brought some pathos to a small part. But after that, Hollywood offers largely dried up. The early 1960s brought a complete halt to her career as studios ran a mile from her, following her next move. Juggling a toddler daughter and young son, dealing with 2 divorces, and carefully guarding the dark secret of what had happened with Tony was becoming an overwhelming burden for Gloria. Her crippling self-doubt had long served as fodder for journalists, and privately it eroded her relationships. The divorce from Howard turned bitter when he fought her for custody of their daughter, and he claimed Gloria was an unfit mother. Howard's case was fueled by the still-rumored Tony scandal. He brought up Gloria's morals as a reason to take the child from her. This legal fight dragged on for years, pushing Gloria to a breaking point. Astonishingly, in the midst of this turmoil, Gloria and Tony Ray reconnected. By 1958, Tony was in his early 20s and Gloria, approaching her late 30s, began dating her former stepson openly, or at least without hiding from friends. Whatever judgment the world might have had about it, they seemed genuinely in love. In May 1960, Gloria and Tony Ray traveled to Tijuana, Mexico, and got married in a low-profile ceremony. It was a union that defied social norms of the time. A man marrying a woman even a couple of years his senior was considered strange. They moved to England for a time, where Gloria was less in the public eye, and started a family of their own. Gloria gave birth to 2 more children with Tony, sons born in 1963 and 1965. For a few years, Grahame might have felt she found a semblance of domestic peace at last. The couple kept the marriage somewhat quiet, perhaps hoping to avoid exactly what later happened, a tabloid frenzy. In 1962, news of her marriage to her former stepson broke in the tabloids, and the ensuing scandal was nuclear. Publications splashed lurid headlines about the so-called shame of Grahame, and the industry largely turned its back on her. In the early 60s, that awareness translated into a de facto banishment. Gloria's already slowing career ground to a halt as studios, fearing public backlash, refused to hire her. Gloria herself seemed to withdraw from Hollywood's glare. For much of the 1960s, she worked sporadically, taking guest roles on television series and performing on stage in regional theater, far from the cameras that once adored her. Through these ups and downs, Gloria's earlier accomplishments still shone. She had delivered some of noir cinema's most indelible performances, and her Oscar win remained a fine achievement. Yet the same Oscar night that crowned her had also turned to backlash. Gossip spread that Gloria hadn't properly played the game after winning her Academy Award. She skipped the post-ceremony press interviews. Untrue rumors even circulated that she'd shown up drunk or behaved erratically at the ceremony, a total fabrication. The Academy was doing all it could to scapegoat her, with a complicit media. Hollywood's gossip mill, led by columnists like Hedda Hopper and Luella Parsons, could be unforgiving, and Gloria, never one to ingratiate herself with schmoozing, didn't do much to counter the whispers. Over time, the combination of bad press, her on-set reputation from Oklahoma, and the looming scandal in her private life blacklisted Gloria for casting. The family lived in London for several years in the 1960s, where Gloria could walk the streets unrecognized. When she did work, it was often out of necessity, to support her family, rather than ambition. She took roles in low-budget European films and occasional TV spots. As her son Timothy from the Nicholas Ray marriage grew older, he too learned of the sensational story that had engulfed his mother. It could not have been easy for any of her children to understand. After the Tony Ray scandal cooled, Gloria gingerly attempted a comeback of sorts. She started accepting film work again in the early 1970s, albeit far from the A-list productions of her heyday. Her name popped up in drive-in fare like Blood and Lace, a grimy horror thriller where she played a demented housemother, and Mama's Dirty Girls, a sleazy exploitation flick in which she headlined as the matriarch of a murderous clan. These films were a far cry from It's a Wonderful Life, but work was work. Gloria approached these roles with professionalism, reportedly memorizing lines meticulously and giving it her all, even if the material was beneath her talents. The paychecks helped support her children, especially after her 1974 divorce from Tony left her a single mother once again. In parallel, Gloria pursued serious acting on stage with determination. She studied with legendary acting teachers Lee Strasberg and Stella Adler. Those who saw her in plays during the 70s often came away impressed. In England and the US, she tackled parts like Amanda in The Glass Menagerie and Mistress Page in The Merry Wives of Windsor. In 1975, she even toured with Macbeth, allegedly as one of the witches. She also guest starred in popular television series like Rich Man, Poor Man in 1976 and Seventh Avenue in 1977. In 1979, director Joan Micklin Silver cast Gloria as the eccentric mother of the lead character in Chilly Scenes of Winter, released in 1980. She also played Mrs. Sisk in Jonathan Demme's Melvin and Howard alongside Mary Steenburgen. It was a small part. She played a dotty woman prone to odd behavior, like taking huge doses of laxatives and forgetting to serve dinner to guests, and one that was heavily cut in the final film. But it put Gloria in a quality production that got awards attention. Steenburgen won an Oscar for her role. On set, Gloria was professional but noticeably aged, and this led Steenburgen to feel, quote, saddened to see the aging star now in a minor supporting role. I felt humbled by the fact that she'd play a part that wasn't so big, Steenburgen later said. The final chapter of Graham's love life was, fittingly, unconventional, but rather sweet. In 1979, she met Peter Turner, a struggling British actor over 20 years her junior, while she was working in London. They struck up an affectionate relationship despite the age difference. Gloria was in her mid-50s, Turner in his early 30s. For Gloria, it was perhaps a last chance at a genuine connection free of Hollywood baggage. The two lived together in Liverpool for a time, where Gloria charmed Turner's working-class family with her down-to-earth attitude and love of a good laugh. By the early 1980s, Gloria's health became a major concern, though she did her best to deny it. In 1974, at only 50 years old, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. She underwent surgery and radiation, and for a time the cancer went into remission. In the autumn of 1981, she was in Lancaster, England, rehearsing a production of The Glass Menagerie, revisiting the role of Amanda Wingfield for a second time in her career. It was a challenging role for a woman in her condition, but Grahame insisted on performing. During rehearsals, she suddenly grew ill. The cancer was rapidly sapping her strength. She collapsed and was admitted to a local hospital in Lancaster. When Gloria realized that her condition was grave, she reached out to her young former lover, Peter Turner. She asked Turner not to inform her family back in the US, fearing they would stop her work and fuss over her. But Turner was distraught at her state and did contact Gloria's children in America. Her family, perhaps remembering how she had minimized her illness before, immediately flew to England. Against Gloria's own wishes and those of Turner, they insisted on bringing her back to New York for proper medical care. In early October 1981, Gloria was put on a plane accompanied by her children and rushed to St. Vincent's Hospital in Manhattan. Sadly, it was too late. On October 5, 1981, just hours after landing, Gloria Grahame died from the cancer's complications at the age of 57. The end came swiftly, in a way mercifully. And true to form, Gloria had tried to the last to script her own finale, preferring a Liverpool terrace with a lover at her side to a hospital bed. News of Gloria Grahame's death was met with a muffled response from Hollywood. In an unfortunate coincidence, her passing was overshadowed in the media by other events and the deaths of more prominent stars around the same time, including Robert Montgomery, William Holden, and also another figure who is no more than a footnote, Stanley Clements, her first husband who died a few days after her. As one writer noted wryly, even in death Gloria Grahame was upstaged, a final bitter note to her relationship with fame. Her remains were interred at Oakwood Memorial Park Cemetery in Southern California, not far from where she had been born nearly 58 years earlier. Only a handful of industry figures attended her memorial. It seemed that Grahame's tumultuous life had come to a quiet close, and the industry was not ready to forgive her sins. Gloria Grahame's life story might have easily slipped into Hollywood obscurity, a cautionary tale buried under mid-century gossip columns, if not for the importance of her work and a growing appreciation among modern cinephiles for her unique talent. In death, Gloria has undergone a re-evaluation and a renaissance of reputation. What was once tabloid fodder is now seen in a more empathetic light, and her performances, once underrated, are now considered classics of American cinema, often cited alongside Lauren Bacall, Barbara Stanwyck, and Jane Greer as one of the definitive femme fatales of the 1940s and 50s. Perhaps the greatest boost to Gloria's legacy came from the loving portrait drawn by Peter Turner in his memoir, and its subsequent film adaptation, Film Stars Don't Die in Liverpool, in 2017. The memoir, published in 1987, showed a side of Gloria the public never knew, a middle-aged woman battling illness, clinging to her dignity and sense of humor, flirting and bickering with a much younger boyfriend, and longing to continue acting until the very end. The memoir's title is a reference to Gloria's own refusal to conform. Indeed, she nearly did die in Liverpool, and would have preferred it that way before her family intervened and dragged her back to New York for her last breath. In a way, Grahame had the last laugh. "I don't think of myself as a star," she told a reporter in 1952. "I rather like the role of the supporting player. It's like being the character in a play who knows all the secrets." As one retrospective fittingly declared, "Sic transit gloria mundi," thus passes the glory of the world. But in Gloria Grahame's case, the glory continues on celluloid, flickering eternally in black and white, forever enchanting, forever mysterious. That's all I've got on the sultry and fascinating Gloria Grahame. I'd like to point out that this episode was brought to you by one of our top-tier patrons, Valerie Filito, who is a fantastic supporter of Hollywood Mysteries, and someone you might recognize from the comments section on many of the videos. As a top-tier supporter, one of the perks is choosing a subject for a video, and I was delighted when Valerie picked Gloria Grahame, so thank you very much for that. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to check out how to pick a video subject for a future video, there's a link to the Patreon page in the description. Until next week, sweet dreams.